away from the political drama happening in Rivers State right now, away from the aftermath of Edo 2024 election, let's move over down to ONDO State right here in our Lagos studio on this morning on ITV as we take a critical look at what happened over the weekend. Because over the weekend, the news had it that there was a bit of flooding in ONDO State and it caused a whole lot of havoc. So the flood wreaked havoc over the weekend in Ondo town and Ondo State precisely, destroying property worth millions of naira. However, there was no loss of life in the ugly incident, which displaced many residents of the town. Reports had it that the flood was occasioned by a heavy downpour, which lasted several hours on Friday. Now, areas affected, according to findings, include Itanla, Oka, Ido Ijomu, Bethel, Akure Ondo Expressway, among others. It was also learned that many houses and vehicles in the affected streets were submerged by the flood. However, in a swift response, the state government said it had ordered evacuation in the affected areas and rapid response had begun to halt further damages. Now, let me take you back to earlier in the year where we had the National Emergency Management Agency advising communities at risk of flooding, especially those residing along the waterways, to relocate to a safer and higher ground in anticipation of the peak of the rainy season. And of course, this is as the agency released alarming data from its Emergency Operations Center, revealing that severe flooding has affected 27 states in Nigeria as we speak. So we saw a bit of flooding, not just a bit of flooding though, but we saw what happened earlier on in the year in Borno State. And interestingly, all of this report is coming just this month, or not last month, from NEMA. And we also saw some time ago where the federal government came to give alarming reports saying some states should get ready, we might have a bit of flooding and all of that. Now, did the state take heed to these warnings? What was done to ensure that we don't have a lot of havoc, a lot of destructions happen in the different states that were handpicked from NEMA and also the federal government? Well, joining me to answer all of these questions and more is Comrade Babatunde Francis Ali. He is the governorship candidate of the People's Redemption Party, PRP, and he joins us live from Ondo State this morning. Good morning, Comrade. Glad to have you join us.
Thank you, presenter.
Welcome on board. So right now, I would love to have the situation of things regarding the flooding in Ondo State as we speak.
Let me start by thanking God for not allowing this event to claim lives. Further to that, to commensurate seriously with the people of Ondo Kingdom, because that is the quarter of the Ondo West local government in Ondo State. It's been sheer mercy of God that this massive flooding, something at this level, did not take any life. I won't count it as any act of man, any preparation or whatsoever. And it's also a big thing that this kind of a thing did not happen in the middle of the night. If it were to have happened at the dead of the night, it would be another story entirely. Well, the situation is calmer now, but you really cannot say that about people who have lost immensely into this incident. The people in Odo, Ijomo, Itanla, or cannot be saying that the situation has returned to normal because you have suffered economically. These are people who have suffered traumatically. So the situation on ground, physically looking at it, it may look calm now, but the pain lingers, the loss, the sense of deprivation. And that is why these communities are calling out for help from government, from intervention agencies to assist them. Unfortunately, this is coming at a time when the state is at its worst economically and sincerely speaking, without any apology to anybody, even politically. It's unfortunate.
So when you say the state is at the worst economically, what do you mean? In what aspect exactly?
Definitely, you see, when the way of life are disrupted, the economic life is already disrupted. Put aside the loss that has been suffered, properties has been lost, uh, vehicles were submerged, homes were submerged. People cannot go about their lives. Shops were overtaken by flood. These people definitely have gone into deep poverty. I must say here. And there is, I will say to you that we live in a climate when there is no systematic preparation
Yeah, okay,
for
great.
issues like
So before
this.
before we talk about the effects the flooding has at the moment in Ondo State, Ondo Town precisely, now let's talk about this. What do you think could be some of the immediate causes of the reoccurrence of flooding in Nigeria, away from the fact that we know that we're now in the raining season in the country, and we saw NEMA come out to give predictions. We also saw the federal government at some point alert Nigerians, regarding the water release from the Lago Dam in Cameroon and all. With all of these things, do you think Ondo State government made enough preparations, on the other hand, regarding this flood? What do you have to say on it?
Well, I want to be careful here because you see, whenever you say anything in Nigeria that does not go down well with the government, they turn it to be a political statement. And by that, they even refuse to respond to it. I mean, there were warnings ahead of this. If you are told fire is coming in your direction or water is coming in your direction, you will have to move. Now, the work of the government, it's also to ensure compliance. It's not to just leave your citizens to. How many of these people are aware of what Nemeth said? In what way are these people carried along in governance? If governance has to were to be at the grassroots, if government representatives in these areas were to be alert to their responsibilities, if the government is not about politics and politics and politics, don't forget election is approaching, in those states. If it is not about how the government will remain in office, about how a government will is the life and days in office, if it were to be about the people, then proactive measures would have been taken. The reason for this warnings is so that people can take proactive measures. Now, I understand that, and I will say that there is a dredging ongoing in that area, but you see, these projects cannot go out infinitum. You knew there will be flood at this time. You know the peak of rain in this area in our state is slightly different from in some other areas. You've been warned ahead. Is it a time to go into a project that will be going at snail speed? If we are going to be having flood around so time, are the people in this area sensitized? If they refuse to, a leader is the one that takes his people to where they ought to be and not necessarily where they want to be. This is the challenge we have with Nigeria government. But you see, Nemet has done his own. What did Ondo State government do? Did they force these people out of this place? But a government is responsible for the safety of lives and property of its citizens. And I'm telling you, sometimes the government will have to use force. Everybody in this axis move out. There might be flood. You explain, you carry these people along. The kings will have to be engaged, the traditional rulers, and we have to be brought on board. We need people to move away from this place. Now, where do they even move to? What are the provisions for these things? It's not, unfortunately, we are reactionary. And that is often what we find around here. We are reactionary. It is until troubles has come before government and even people will respond. But basically, our people are not aware
And
of
it's
all these
really sad.
international alerts and national alerts. They are
Yes,
not. And it's the work of the government here to make them to be aware of that. And where people resist doing that,
of course.
Lagos
Now
State, there was a
speaking,
time if you cross
yes,
some
okay.
particular roads, you'll be arrested and they charge you for attempted suicide. So government has to come on board. It's not just to explain. You explain and you back it up with. Fortunately, I commiserate with everybody. And of course, I'm a sunshiner, and it's painful.
Of course, and right here in Lagos State, we're also commiserating with persons affected by the flood incident in Ondo State. Speaking about having the government who is reactive to situation, just this morning on the Punch newspaper, we saw in the news that the Ondo State Governor, Mr. Aloki Ayedatiwa, has warned the residents of the state against involving in some acts that could cause floods in the state, particularly the issue of dumping waste in this period that the flood incident has occurred already. Now let's talk about the aspect of the people also in some way or the other contributing to some of the things that's actually cause floods in Nigeria.
Uh, Issues that lead to flooding, like dumping waste in the drainages and even building and constructions in waterways. My dear sister, this still boils down to the responsibility of the regulatory agency. Just last week in our political consultation, I was somewhere in Akure, and that's around the Joka axis. And I told the people there, waste management operation in Ondo State, in fact, I won't call it management, I'll call it collection. It used to be something that is quite virile. But how will waste collectors assess these areas where there is no uh, good roads? So you find a complex situation where we contribute to a large extent in making the society, and the society turns back to make us. Government must take responsibility. Government is a father to me in a kind of a situation like this. To his people, a government, I'm not saying a governor, but he's the head of the government, is a father figure to his people. And his desire, his plan, is not just to come back to tell these people, oh, Ondo West, incidentally, for those who knew me some 9 years ago, will know that I used to be very, very involved in the waste management operation of Ondo West. And we will move compactors in during environmental day. We will do a lot of things, but these trucks cannot even move in our streets again because there are no roads. Number two, when a people find out that governance has been about the politicians, has been about the government and his family, those in government and their cronies, the people tends to live to survive on their own. As of today, Ondo State is a very poor state. And is it because we are not having IGR? Is it because we are not having our share of national sharings every month? But when there is no responsibility on the part of those who should be accountable unto us, you are asking people not to. Is it now that you will be advising people not to drop waste in the drainages? Do you have a people around us, even across the country, who believe what government is doing? When you are telling the people, don't drop the drainages, what are you doing about the drainages? If you look at it, most of the roads, even in the commercial areas of Akure, the drainages in it are the drainages from ordinary streets. It cannot take the water that is passing. And this comes to planning. It's
So
not
it's
just
a
enough
clear
to issue
indication,
instruction.
yes indeed. It's a clear indication of medicine after death, what we're seeing right now happening in Ondo State.
Sincerely
Really,
speaking,
really sad.
sincerely speaking, we just
Yes.
thank God no life was lost.
And Thankfully, that's really is a good thing. Aside from the fact that we had damages with properties and a lot of that, but I mean, no life actually
Unfortunately,
was lost. Interestingly, and we thank God
unfortunately,
for that. So we are also aware that come November, which is just around the corner next month, lot of persons, Ondo-lites, if I should put it that way, would be heading to the polls to pick the next governor of Ondo State. Now, with what has currently happened in the state, do you think it's going to, in some way or the other, influence the choice of the people on who becomes the next governor of Ondo State?
well, that will be opportunistic, but definitely the people here already know what to do. I don't see the government in power coming back to lead this state and go and put this down. This government is going to the governor is going to live for good by the grace of God come next year February, because our people are tired. Our people are tired of reactionary kind of governance. Our people are tired of a political party which trust and desires is just enriching themselves, try just to keep power. What is it today in Ondo State on the basis for which a sunshiner will want to go to the poll and vote the APC? We have told our people, I do not see what is going on in Ondo now happening. If you see a caption we put out that a lot of political will be put to back our interventions, because a government is the one that knows where its people ought to be. True government are not where they ought to be. In Ondo, we will save and we will safeguard the lives and the properties of our people. It will be opportunistic to say this will affect it. Ondo State is already made up. The minds of Sunshiners are already made up. APC should just get out.
Okay, and come November, we're going to see how things would eventually turn out in Ondo State. But as we head to Coast Home this morning, to avoid future occurrence of things like this happening, especially on the angle of the federal government, do you think the federal government has any role to play in all of this, or is just the duty of the state governors alone to ensure that we do not have reoccurrence of things like this happen in the country? We saw what happened in Borno State the other time, and now this is on those states. So to avoid future occurrence of all of this, what do you think could be the way forward?
I think there is a synergy that must come to play between the federal government and the state government. But you see, for the federal agency to put out these warnings and announcements and signals, the people who owns the house, my dear, if you are living in a place and you are told if you are on the road and a bull is headed in your direction, nobody needs to tell you you should move away. So, to me, in this situation, the federal government has played this role to an extent. The state is almost autonomous constituency, and those that are elected to lead the state ought to live up to their responsibility in terms of planning for raining days, in terms of leading the people in such a way that the people feel part of the government and the people can immediately react to issues. Let this government say they are going to share anything tomorrow. 90% of Nigerians will not believe it. And I can tell you 99% of Sunshiners will not expect it, because they do not expect anything from this government any longer. So the federal government has played this role in this situation. They ought to play their own role. You see, governance is in continuum. You might not be able to execute all the projects in one day, but while trying to clear the waterways and ensuring there is no flood, you should also prepare for eventualities and unforeseen situations. For example, when you ask people, get away from this area, flood is prone to flood, where do they go to? They should just move all their family members and move into neighbors' houses or move to another towns, people who barely feed. Unfortunate, but like I said, we thank God that no lives were lost in this, and to that I really thank God.
Now, your final thoughts on this, Comrade Babatunde, especially to Sunshiners, residents who have been affected by this flooding in Ondo State. What would you say to them?
I will say to my people, Sunshiners are extremely resilient set of people. I will say to you that you should please take heart. Thank God you did not lose husband, wives, or children. I will say you should start to rebuild your life. I will say you should have hope. I will say since there is life, there is hope. In addition to that, I will say please prepare in November to vote for a proactive governance. PRP, I
Okay,
don't
all
care
right.
if
Thank
you
you
see it
so
as an
much.
advert.
Thank you so much.
It's
I
a
don't think it's
party of the
timing
people.
for
Thank
campaigning
you.
already as regards the election, but I really must thank you enough, Comrade Babatunde Francis Ali, governorship candidate of the People's Redemption Party, right there in Ondo State. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Sunshiners. God bless you. Okay.
Ami, that's how you say that. Okay, that's our bit right here in Lagos studio. Let's hope that we no longer get to hear sad situation of flooding, especially disasters that can be prevented. Let's hope that the federal government do give a lasting solution to this issue of the release of Lago Dam from Cameroon, and also the state government as well, and every other relevant authorities come out to play their parts to ensure there's a lasting solution to the issue of flooding in the country. Hopefully together we can. My name is Anuoluwapo Stevens, and that's our beat right here on This Morning on ITV right here in Lagos.